Not yet. Here we go.
Good evening. Notice is hereby given that on Monday, April 9th, 2012, at the hearing room in Town Hall, South Yarmouth, following applications for certificate of appropriateness pursuant to Section 9 of Chapter 470 of the Acts of 1973,
Gotta turn his mic on.
No.
as amended, will be heard in the order listed below. Before we start, for those of you who are not familiar with our procedures, it's fairly simple and informal. The applicant and/or agent will come forward to this table and make the presentation. Any abutter or interested party wishing to look at the plans may do so, and we will give you a chance to make comments pro or con. We ask that anyone who speaks to state their name for the record. We usually make our decisions fairly quickly. Please be reminded that our committee's main purpose is to review items for their appropriateness and setting. It is the responsibility of the applicant to comply with the regulations of other town boards, such as health, conservation, engineering, sign inspector, and so on. We urge you to seek guidance from the building department before starting any project. Any person aggrieved by our decision tonight can appeal to the Regional Commission of Old Kings Highway. However, you should know that there's only a 10-day appeal period starting tomorrow when our decisions are filed with the Yarmouth Town Clerk. There are certain criteria that must be met for an appeal, and our secretary will be happy to supply you with paperwork and information. We thank you in advance for your cooperation, and we'll begin with the first item on the agenda, which is to install retaining walls and stone stairs at 41 Rihanna Road. The owners are Alan and Jane Cutler, and Ron's Excavating is the agent, and that's yourself. Please. This also calls for stairs.
Yes.
And where will they be? Down from the front?
This is a similar.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Good.
just so you can see the sort of work that the gentleman does.
Right.
You're hiring the same?
Yes. How could I not? What a beautiful wall that is. The boulders on ours would be a little bit smaller, because that's a two-story.
Right.
Ours would need to be a little bit smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More in
Right, in scale.
proportion
Yeah.
to the house. Right. And he's going to do a double wall,
Right,
Right.
so that he doesn't have to have it so high.
right. I
Good.
move to approve the application as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Should look nice. Nice.
Great, yeah.
The next item is concerned with the replacement of a 4-foot picket fence with a 6-foot stockade fence at 56 Squirrel Run Road. And that's Linda Medeiros is the owner, agent. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Linda Medeiros, and I just wanted to clarify one point, is I'm only replacing the 4-foot picket fence on the left side of my house facing the home.
It's about 20, 25 feet length is all, right? Something like that.
Well, I'm going to extend it to the face of the house, and I think it's 62 feet,
Okay.
if I have the number correct.
Paces, yeah. I guess that's right.
Is that the only fence that exists there now? This,
The 4-foot picket, and you have a picture of it.
well, I'm looking at this one. This is the street, Squirrel Run, and here is the,
That's the, where the fence is that I'm going to replace and an extension of it. But the 4-foot fence goes all around my backyard.
oh, okay, so
And-
that goes across here.
Right, the 4-foot picket.
Here,
Yes,
and then connects to the house.
yes.
And that's a natural-looking picket fence.
Yes, and so will the stockade be a natural.
So you have the scalloped picket fence, so you're going to do the scalloped stockade?
Yes. Can I move back to that? Your scallops, you're saying like this.
Yeah.
I was going to put the full stockade, if that's possible, on that side, because it's for privacy.
As usual.
Well, I just said that because the
Yeah, right. You notice
the
that?
picket fence is
Yeah, it's a
scalloped.
little,
Yeah.
right.
I misunderstood you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stockade, they may even look better straight. Really. Okay, do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to be approved?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good. Good night now. Okay. The next item on our agenda is one that was continued from 2 weeks ago. It's concerned with trimming and removal of trees along Route 6A. Terrence Roach from the Mass Department of Transportation was here that evening and is here tonight with the clarification. Good evening.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for hearing me tonight. We have a revised submittal that had been forwarded to the committee earlier in the week, which has modified some of our, modified our original submittal, and I think provided clarification of what will occur at each site. There has been, the initial submission was for 38 trees to be either pruned or removed. 4 have been removed since, and that's reflected on the pictures that you have tonight. Some of the work was done by others, and that's indicated on the pictures. I've updated the pictures that you're looking at, so you can see that. There was 3 other trees that seemed to be in question, and this was judging from our last meeting, so we've removed those. The 3 are reflected on 6A West, and they're the 3rd, 4th, and 5th pictures. The address is at house number 850, and there is 2 at house number 822. and the specifics about what we were proposing to do at that location would continue to monitor those particular trees. So the total now would be 34, 16 removals, and then 18 would be pruned. The overhanging limbs would be addressed.
So the ones for removal are mostly on this first page.
Yeah, the removal from the submittal package entirely are if your package there on 6A West, they would be the third, fourth, and fifth photos that you have in the order that they've been submitted in.
Do you have any plans for replanting?
Not currently under this particular work. It is something that, as we've been doing work in the adjacent towns, it's a request that's been common.
Because there was the Cape Cod Commission, a report on the corridor management updated in 2010 that supposedly had DOT input, and replanting was strongly
Encouraged, yeah.
encouraged.
There had been some replanting in Barnstable, and it is something that we're conscious of now, and future contracts will include a replanting component. Currently, this particular work, there will be no replanting, there's no mechanism for it. But it is something that we're conscious now and that we're including in future contracts, particularly on Cape. Seems to be where we're getting most of the requests for replanting.
Yeah, the Cape has changed a lot over the years. If you look at pictures 100 years ago, the tree population was pretty thin, because they cut down a lot of trees, using them for salt works, heating and shipbuilding and everything else, and it was just wide open spaces. And then over the years now, since those type of occupations, so on, have gone by, trees have grown up, and particularly along 6A, a lot of nice trees had been planted, and so we're kind of used to seeing nice tree-lined roads, and so that's why we're so interested in restocking.
Yeah, well, it was a deliberate effort at one time.
Yeah, at one time to do that.
Yeah, and I, personally, I understand that. I think our agency is becoming more conscious of that. I think that our focus here now is to address those that are potential hazards that, could potentially strike targets, what we call targets, pedestrians or vehicles passing.
What about some of the telephone poles that are
Yeah.
potential hazards?
They-
That are
they-
right on the road.
They are, and that,
Some of them are decaying.
yeah. That's the utility company, unfortunately.
They seem to get hit more than the trees, actually.
They do.
Yeah.
And I just one thing I could add, if I could suggest that, if this is not approved tonight, that someone from the town, I would suggest someone from the town go out and take a look at some of the cavities in these trees. Some of them have significant defects. There's concern for several of these trees that that we get to fairly quickly. I think it's evident with some of the visual inspection.
Right.
This may have been covered at the last hearing. I was unfortunately not able to be here. But is the need to remove these trees based upon the opinion of a certified arborist?
No.
No.
No. We don't have a certified arborist on our payroll. So it's a visual inspection from folks that have been doing this type of work. The actual work itself will be supervised by a certified arborist.
There's a certain irony in that, as you may be able to
Correct.
appreciate.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it takes 200 years to grow a tree and 15 minutes to cut it down with a chainsaw.
Understood.
My observation, though, in looking at the trees, I mean, they're all pretty bad. That are marked, that I could find.
Yeah, it's a problem with trees in the sense that they like light. And when you plant a tree and there's a wide open space over the blacktop, first thing they do is reach into that light space. And so there are a lot of branches that do go out over the roadway. Usually they get branches in the opposite direction as well, and they end up being balanced, if you will. But because of the wires, we end up cutting a lot of those off. So it's really, the only solution is to put wires underneath the ground. The real solution, which is very expensive.
On these two specimens that are near the town green, one right on the town green and the other a little bit down the way, I would really like to have an arborist opinion on those. They are listed as decaying and you want to remove them. 6AE number 223, 6AE number 277.
223.
These two.
Yeah, that's the one right across from our house. On the corner of Strawberry
Yeah.
Lane.
Looks like it's approximate to the town.
Yeah.
22.
What was the second one, 223 and then 277?
Yeah.
Suzanne?
Yeah, they're in the brochure, they're right.
Yeah, they're on the town.
Yeah.
Section.
Is that something that the board would want in writing? How would you want that submitted?
Yes, it should be in writing.
That they cannot be saved.
Okay.
I'd like to look into, I mean, obviously this overhanging limb has to go, but that the tree cannot be saved, don't take on faith.
Okay. That was 223 and 277.
Anyone else?
Not I. I think that's a good suggestion. Suzanne?
Thank you.
Because that's rather open space there. And
Yeah.
It's nice space.
Anstar has gone ahead and pruned a few.
Yeah, I had seen that they had been out.
Not particularly artfully.
Richard, what action is required on this at this time? Any?
Well, they're coming in for approval,
Yeah.
so that if we give them approval tonight, they can start work. And so, as Suzanne pointed out, a couple of trees that we'd like to especially look at and not go cutting them down.
So do they apply for a CA?
Certificate of appropriateness, I
And
guess you
that would
call
make
it.
an amendment?
Yes, you could do it that
Yeah.
way.
Anyone else have any remarks?
Not I.
I had walked along most of the way, and the other sections where I couldn't walk, I drove along and looked them over with Marilyn, letting her drive, and I can look. And by and large, the trees that they're
Right.
saying should be cut down should be, there's no doubt, and the ones that should be trimmed aren't really in desperate need of trimming. Surprising they haven't pulled the wires down in some of the storms in the last few years. They just sort of wrapped around all the wires. So I don't see a problem with those.
So I make a motion that we proceed as indicated with checking out those two trees that,
Right, I'll do that as an amendment.
I need to talk.
Yes, did you have a comment, please?
Yes, I'd like to make some comments if
Sure.
I could.
Sure.
Thank you. Is the name Pete?
Yes.
Mr. Pete?
Yes.
And you state your name too, please.
I'm sorry, Bob Howard, South Yarmouth, 11 St. Andrews Way. I've been in the town for 12 years. I don't know whether you've been informed or not that it was in the paper that I'm the catalyst. And the reason that you're listening to this tonight,
I'm aware of all of this. We've been in town for 15 years.
may I say what I want to say before you interrupt me?
Why?
Thank you. I'm doing it for your... I don't know whether you were here a year and a half ago when I made a presentation here about the safety.
Mr. P was
I was not on the committee at that
All
time.
right, well then, good. I was going to do that for bring you up to date as to why, where, and what this is all about. And maybe, as you say, you know it all.
I didn't
But
say I
I'm
knew it
here.
all, sir.
You said you're very familiar
Let's not get
with
into
it.
that stuff. Yeah, well, I'm familiar with the town. I've been here 15 years. A couple of years longer than you've been here.
Well, that doesn't make any difference. I was just saying how long I've
It
been
was
here.
here, come
Come on,
on.
just
It was in the
knock it
Okay.
paper.
So that I'm only going to repeat once again that the trees haven't been cut here before you and I ever came here. And the trees haven't been trimmed or cut in 15 years. And 5 years ago, so that made it 10, that we had a death over here on 6A. And so I got very concerned that nothing has been done in the last 5 years. So I made a presentation here a year and a half ago, and I got the state involved concerning it, because I'm here on the basis of safety, not for aesthetic or beautification, or a tree that's been there for 200 or 500 years with its beautification. Yeah, we'll cut it down in 5, so I don't want to have another death on 6A in this town, as long as I'm going to be living here. So that's my impetus for here. I'd also like to ask the board and ask the Terry Roach as to how many people are we going to need for ROE? That's right of entry. How many people are the state going to have to, before you give your approval, they have to have a form that they have to sign allowing the trees to be cut that are on their property that are considered dangerous as well as need to be trimmed so that they don't fall on 6A. But the state can't go in and do those trees until such time as that they need a right of entry. The state does, in order to cut those trees.
Now,
So,
if I may ask a question here, Terry, when we see 20 feet from the center, that's like on the borderline, isn't it?
It really depends on where you are on 6A. The layout is modified as it goes down 6A, really depending on where you're at. So the offset for what the state's property is not consistently 20 feet. It will vary as you travel along 6A. There's been modifications and so forth over the years. So the right of entry would be a pruning of a limb. We would want to go back to the trunk to do the pruning correctly and not leave a stub at the end, or what they call tipping, and it tends to decay the tree, and aesthetically it doesn't look very well, so we'd want to prune it back to the trunk. To do that, we're going to have to access people's property. So the right of entry would be to access private property to prune. The tree removals themselves, I don't recall, but I don't believe any of them are on private property. I believe all of those are on state property. It's the pruning itself that we'd have to go back. Typically, for pruning operations, it's not something that we've done with adjacent towns. It's something that, we submitted to you folks. I thought it was the right thing to do, but we typically won't request permission to do pruning activities. for limbs that are overhanging 6A. We typically want to create an envelope, a 20-foot high, and then out to the roadside edge, the paved surface, to create a clear envelope so that truck traffic and low-lying limbs would be removed, and, you don't see those being hit. So, rather than exclude that from the submittal, I wanted to include it so you could see what, our intentions were.
Good. Bob, why don't you continue, please?
Okay. On the original tree removal on page 4 and also on page 5, and I don't mean to be argumentative in any way, shape,
We don't
or...
have the originals anymore, we have only the revised.
Do you have a picture number?
Yeah, it's on page 4, but it's number 822 Main Street, Yarmouth.
Yep.
And these were ones that were they used the word leaning, and they're leaning on the overhead wires. I mean, they just don't, from an aesthetic standpoint, I just don't get why you won't allow them to take this tree down, either one of them. And if you can see, they have, these are pines.
Right.
And, a pine tree, I'm not trying to tell you that I'm an expert, but a pine tree will snap like that.
Right.
And you put any kind of, never mind the snow, we get ice.
Well, they
Here.
plan on removing that tree.
Well, it says leaning to monitor. That's what I have
It
here.
says remove.
Oh, it does? Is that the one?
It says leaning
Is it-
considerably
may I
over
just-
6A and should be
just-
removed.
I'm showing you this, this is what I'm
This tree.
talking about. That
Yeah.
tree, and then look at it.
Right, it says here remove.
Okay, those are going to be, so that's
Right.
an additional instead of,
No,
Oh, that's on the list.
No, it says
It's one of-
remove from submittal. They've been removed.
yeah, the pictures reflect what
okay.
what is proposed now.
So this thing dated the 26th of March is no longer,
Correct.
This is the correct.
okay.
Need the
Okay.
pictures?
The photos provide clarification.
You want to
you know.
remove that from the submittal? I would take it down.
But I have to, and I just want to tell you this again, that I'm going to the state legislature somehow, some way. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'll get there. And for Miss, Corsier, is that your name? Suzanne?
Yes.
Suzanne.
You spoke about that the telephone poles are in bad shape. Well, I don't know why,
Not all.
other than you, no, but those that are, that somebody that has a telephone pole in front of them, some of those people that live on 6A, or I understand that the OKH, you don't have the responsibility to see anything about safety, and that's what I'm going to try to
We
do.
don't have the authority.
That's
At
right.
this time.
Right. But it would seem to me that if I lived on 6A, you can bet, whether I've been here for 1 year or 15 years or 12, that I would have been on top of things immediately, like I was in my town in Simsbury, Connecticut. And it's too bad that there isn't anybody. I'm the only one that's come forth concerning this matter, and it puzzles the devil out of me that somebody wouldn't have thought about safety, especially when we had a death here 5 years ago, January 10th, 2007.
Okay, we're all aware of that.
I know that, but I want to repeat it.
Well,
I just don't understand it. And thank you for your time.
This particular tree, though, 822, that was removed because it was still alive?
Yeah. The discussion from the last meeting, I went back to our office and spoke with our landscape architect. And it is a concern, the tree is a concern, but it is something that we can monitor at this time. The tree is not dead. It does pose a hazard. The snow loads, there's concern with the snow loads.
Right.
The reason for its removal was because from the last discussion, there was concern for healthy trees being removed. The tree poses no immediate hazard, so there was no uprooting of the grass hadn't lifted. There was no indication that the leaning was a major problem at this time. So it's something that we're going to have to monitor. There is the concern with the snow loads. I'll be honest with you. That's a type of tree that's it's typically
Snap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an arborist at my house today, and he took one tree down which was dead. Basically, the top of it had turned brown, and it had some bugs eating at the bottom of it. And he looked around at some of the other trees, and there was a tree like this leaning, and he suggested that be removed,
right,
or so that it doesn't land on my cars as they're driving in and out of the driveway,
right.
which is the same situation here.
They said they'll monitor it.
Yeah, there's other trees that pose sight distance issues.
Yeah.
It's the effort here is to remove the hazards, and we're not. Our intention is not to, destroy the aesthetics of 6A.
Yeah.
And
I move that we approve the proposal with the amendment of the arborist report on those
On
two
those two trees.
locations.
Yep.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Move ahead.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have a few items.
Can we keep these, or do we have to give them back in?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have this one.
Should we discuss that Amy Lane or
Yeah.
Ivy Lane, whatever it is?
We'll take a short recess.
What's the number on that? Does that have
This
a
just
number?
says that if you want to make any changes to what was approved tonight,
I just wrote.
anything outside of that, you would let us know first, okay?